Welcome everybody to the closing plenary of the 13th annual Oxford Real Farming Conference. I'm the conference director, Francesca Price, and I am delighted today that we've managed to convince our co-founder, Ruth West, to join us for this last session of the day. We've got a number of fantastic speakers lined up as well for this last hour, who are going to give us their highlights from this year's conference. As you know, we had to move the conference online at the very last minute, well, 3.5 weeks ago, due to rising COVID numbers. So it's been a bit of a quick turnaround. And unlike last year, which was designed to be an online conference, this year we didn't have any fancy tech team. So it's been a matter of the 100 staff and volunteers behind the Oxford Real Farming Conference scrabbling around to learn about accessing Zoom accounts and the Zoom functionality. I know a lot about that now, but I didn't at the beginning. So a sort of big shout out to all of them who've had to learn how to do that at the last minute. And I think it's gone really pretty smoothly as a result. We ended up with nearly 4,000 delegates for the online conference. So there is a bonus, there is a silver lining to having the conference online. And it's been a fantastic testimony to the growing interest in the agroecology movement and all the hard work that many of you do on a daily basis. So that's fantastic to see that number of people joining us for the last 2.5 days. So I'd like to bring Ruth in.
I need to say, and I've been joined by Colin, who was watching downstairs, but he failed on the technical things to be able to get in on his own. So he's come to join us here. Just to add in as well, I mean, I'd enjoyed particularly just the one we had from Amazonia and the one from Guatemala, the sessions that we wouldn't have been able to have otherwise, or had the chance to see. Just so rich, just absolutely fabulous.
It's been fun. Those global sessions have been amazing. I do have to say, just as we bring you and Colin in, Ruth, that it was fantastic to hear you described today by David Wolf, who's the owner of Wakelands, which is the largest agroforestry, or the first agroforestry site in the UK. And he described Colin and Ruth as the supreme commanders of the rebel movement. And I think that's an accolade that they are well deserved in having. So it's fantastic. So I put it to both of you, Colin and Ruth, what were your highlights from the 13th annual Oxford Real Farming Conference? Now, Ruth, you mentioned a few, but tell us about a bit. Tell us a few more.
Oh, it has to, the Jewish one as well. I just found that just really informative. Just going back to tradition and the relationship with the land and how these young farmers are trying to reclaim it, and the concepts that they were introducing again to, but basically as well, I mean, if you follow the Jewish tradition, we wouldn't have any problems about land access, because nobody would own land except for the source, the one, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that on top of that. Yeah, it becomes difficult to pick things out after that, doesn't it, really? Because there was just so many that taught me so much.
And you were very involved also in the climate sessions and in sort of formulating those. Did you get the chance to see those, Ruth?
No, on my list afterwards to watch, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And also the elms ones as well. I really need to know about that. So I'm going to think might be talking to, the horticulture one on elms, very, very useful actually, with having somebody from DEFRA there. And I thought that was really, really useful to have them sort of having to be accountable, but also really listening to the needs of horticulture.
Fantastic. And what about Colin? Would you like to? Colin,
yes.
Tell us about, did you get a chance to see the sessions? You're involved in about 2. So
3 that were stand out for me was John Lett's on a completely new approach to arable, which I think is absolutely vital, actually, if we're going to have genuinely be able to go on feeding ourselves for centuries to come. I love the session with Helena Norberg Hodge, where she talked to Africa and so on and so on. basically about, yeah. And I loved also the Jewish one, I agree. I couldn't help thinking that all we need to do politically and economically is to emulate the principles that Samson and the others were describing in this religious context. Most interesting that, how much one could learn from the past if anyone knew more about the past, as it were. We're too hooked on modernity, you see.
Say that again, Colin.
We're too hooked on what people consider to be modernity, which is really just a sort of technophilia and this neoliberal economy.
And in that context, Ruth mentioned the Mutaka session, which was just held just at 4 o'clock. And it was an incredible session where we had farmers from a village, from a community up an Amazon tributary in Brazil join us. And they'd had to travel by boat, so we'd had to change the time, and it's just that sort of lack of understanding that even though most of us are actually accessing the conference, you know, from our living rooms or from our bedrooms or whatever else, there are people having to travel to computers to be a part of the conference, and it was just fantastic to see the effort that had gone into that. It was, you know, amazing to see some of the imagery of their community and what they're doing with agroforestry. And of course, agroforestry has been a big theme in the conference. There's been about 7 sessions on it, and it's been really exciting to see that grow over the last couple of years. And I have to say, for myself, I think the global sessions was something that I was very invested in. I was delighted to have that opportunity to hear from farming communities all around the world. I was involved in a session with Kenyan tea farmers, which was amazing. And there was also a fantastic session with Guatemalan farmers on indigenous soil practices, which was also equally exciting. So the opportunity to be online and to connect with these communities and to learn so much from them was really exciting. So I'm so delighted that happened. And of course, one of the reasons that's able to happen is because we have this amazing interpretation team. So a big shout out to them as well. So at this stage, I'd like to bring in 2 of our fantastic farmers who have joined us today. One of them is Nikki Yoxall, who is representing Pasture for Life, and the other one is Andy Dibben, who is from Abbey Home Farm. And I'd just love to hear about your highlights from the conference today.
Do you want to go first, Andy?
You go, Nikki, you go.
Okay. Oh, what an amazing couple of days or 3 days. It's been fantastic. And I think the thing that has really struck a chord with me this year has been the importance of community and complexity. And there's been a few sessions that have looked to explore a particular theme or a particular idea, but actually what comes through time and time again actually is that it's the complexity of the system and the communities both within and around the systems that are the thing that kind of create success or enable abundance, and that nourish us in terms of our learning as well. So I think for me that's come through really, really strongly. I felt last year there was definitely a feeling of being part of, embedded in the ecology and looking backward to our roots to sort of think about where we came from. And I felt like this year we were looking around us to the people that are here with us and who are influencing us and teaching us. And it felt like a bit of a shift, and it felt very timely, and really enjoyed that coming through. And I think a couple of things that I really enjoyed. I have to give a shout out to Hannah Thorogood from the Inkpot Farm for her live cow move yesterday morning in the Designing Regenerative Food Systems, and for being outside and, you know, kind of sharing her favorite messy corners of the farm with us. That was just such a delightful thing. And there was so much support for Hannah doing that. So yeah, that was a real highlight for me yesterday. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it's the diversity of the conference it's just completely inspiring. You know, I'm by trade, I'm an organic horticulturalist. My current passion, or something we're very into at the farm moment, is agroforestry. And like Fran said, it's like a few years ago, there might have been 2 or 3 sessions on it. It was something that everyone was going to be doing in the future. And it's amazing. Everyone wants to get on with it right now. The questions aren't like, oh, that's a nice idea. You know, it might apply to the odd farm. People are looking to apply it to, you know, a large proportion of farms across the country. And that is really, really exciting. It's also a bit like Nikki said, you know, I exist in a horticultural world and can get a bit blinkered. And then these subjects are starting to become, you know, across all disciplines of farming. You know, agroforestry can be applied to almost any agricultural system. And we see that represented at the conference, you know, whether it be about nuts, whether it be about fence posts, pretty much every angle of agroforestry is being covered. And one of my particular highlights is actually someone's work that I hadn't come across yet, which is Professor Stephen Newman on my session. And he showed some amazing photos of agroforestry systems in China that I'd never seen before, and some of the techniques they're using. And, you know, it's amazing. It makes us realize how far behind we are on agroforestry in the UK and how far ahead, and actually what an old skill and technique it is. And it's been used around the world for a long, long time. And then the other area there's been a lot of sessions on this year, which I find, again, really exciting, is it's the very boring name of integrated pest management. But essentially, it's the subject of not killing all the insects on Earth with chemicals. And again, it was something that it used to be talked about loosely, and a term was being used, was like minimal reductions in pesticide usage. Now we're, you know, I'm an organic farmer, I don't use pesticides, but we're a tiny percentage of land in the country. So to hear conventional farmers talking about really meaningful reductions and the techniques they're using, you know, this is no longer talking about something that'd be nice to happen. This is now really happening in farming, and it's incredibly exciting time in farming, I have to say. A lot of other things in the world are quite depressing and maybe going backwards. Farming, I've never seen such an exciting period in farming, and yeah, it's invigorating.
I think that crossover has been really interesting, and one of the things that I helped organise last night was a social, because I think people were really kind of disappointed about not having that opportunity to catch up in the pub. So there's a few of us kind of organised and put on an opportunity for folk who had been at ORFC or OFC this year, or hadn't been able to get to either, but still to come together and have a chat. And the thing that I loved was that there was a family, there was the son and his mum and dad who joined separately, and mum and dad had been at one conference and son had been at the other, and they were swapping notes, and there was just so much enthusiasm for the meeting point between kind of more conventional farming systems and for those that are more agroecological. And that opportunity again to come together and chat through whether it's really like whole system scale change where someone's decided that they want to completely revert to a new way of doing things, or make that transition, or it's folk just kind of turning to look in the same direction and just thinking more broadly about the things that they could change. All of those little changes all add up to something that's going to be more resilient and more restorative going forward. So yeah, I think it's really exciting time.
Yeah, I totally agree, Nick. It feels like the us and them that's existed in farming between sustainable and not, that curtain seems to be being well and truly drawn back, and the whole of farming is approaching it with the techniques we're learning at conferences like this.
Fantastic. And I think Andy and Nikki, you both touched on two issues that have come up a lot in this conference, which is agroforestry and pesticides. There's been a lot of sessions on that, and from different angles. You know, there was a fantastic session on what can consumers do when it comes to pesticides. So I thought that was, it was a lunchtime session, and I think it brought in a different audience as well, which was really good to hear. And Nikki, it's interesting to hear you say about different generations joining at the same time. And one session that I popped into, which was really lovely to see, was Alice Holden's session on farmerhood, which is about how you farm with children. And we had lots of children on camera as well, which was exciting. And I think that's something that obviously wouldn't have happened had we been in person. You don't want to bring toddlers to a 2.5-day in-person conference, but we could have them there online. So it was really nice to see. So it was wonderful to talk to you both. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I will move on to bringing in Kath Delmany from Sustain, and also Rose Lewis from the, I'm going to get this wrong now, Rose, have you told me, the Soil Association Land Trust. You're going to have to correct me.
It's fine, you did it.
Woodlands Farm.
Do tell us about your highlights and tell us about the what you feel that has changed over the last year when it comes to policy and to the sessions, you know, that you were involved in when it comes to things like environmental land management and things like that.
You go ahead, Rose.
Okay. So actually, this is my first Oxford Farming Oxford Real Farming Conference. In fact, it's actually my first farming conference because I'm completely new to this sector, and I've taken on the challenge of transitioning wood oaks farming to an ecological food and farming hub based out in Northwest. So this was all about learning for me, and it really has been a very inspirational few days. So first, thanks for that. I suppose where my interest lay was around learning about new models and new ways of farming. So I was particularly inspired by the Wakelands agroforestry talk that happened yesterday. Just to watch the video itself was absolutely awesome, and I again love the description of Ruth and Colin being rebels. In fact, they're calling themselves rebels right through that organisation. So it was really interesting to see a farm doing something transformational. And I also went to another one, which is about transformational models. And again, hearing from 4 or 5 entrepreneurs, really just talking about their experience, their different approaches. And I also have a finance background. So what was really fascinating was just to hear the different language of businesses talking about not scaling, not growing, not doing all of these big things that so often you hear in the language. And I suppose that was what I really picked up from a lot of the sessions, was really about how we try and change the narrative. And if we can change the narrative of food and farming, then maybe we've got the opportunity to fix some of the challenges in the world. And that was particularly came out in the transformational models. And it was really about how we all are complicit to the language we use, and how, you know, perhaps if we think about the language, even down to the marketing and the branding that we put on our labels, was one suggestion in this thing, which I thought was really fascinating. And I think we can all take away from that actually that's what we need to be thinking about, is what does our language say to our customers and to the wider world about what we're trying to achieve. Collaboration and community were 2 words that kept coming out. And then I go into the last session I went into and got introduced to Shume, a completely new technique that I'd never heard of, natural agriculture. And then that brought the spiritual thing in, which I really liked too. I loved Hannah's walk with her cows in the field, but also I was really inspired by hearing from the international crew. And what was lovely is so often, as you described, Francesca, you'd have people that had travelled to their one computer in the village, and you'd always have a group of people behind, almost watching in wonder and surprise about where they are. But what they were coming out with, their common sense, their knowledge, their expertise, we should actually be turning the camera on them, because we should be a wonder with all the wonderful things they're doing in these Indigenous environments across the world. So truly inspired, thank you.
Oh, Rose, it's so nice to meet you in this context. If we were on a stage together, I'd be going, oh, do you want to meet up for a coffee? And we'd have had a...
C'est superbe de vous avoir avec nous aujourd'hui, Rose. Je vois beaucoup de personnes dans la boîte de discussion qui nous parlent de cette discussion virtuelle, et pour nous, c'est incroyable. Oh, je risque de commencer à pleurer même. Quelle conférence!
Kath, if you just want to, I don't know if anyone else is hearing French.
I am, yes.
So Brittany, I think there may be a...
Please, can somebody tell me what virtual hug in French is?
Yes, I didn't know you were bilingual, Kath.
No, well, this is the first I knew of it. Well, if we're the
I started reading your text, though.
If we're the Rebel Alliance, we need to speak in many languages to talk to many places, don't we? What I was saying was, if we were in Oxford right now, we would be sharing real hugs. So I am sending the virtual hug to the whole lot of us on this call. What an amazing conference. There's been such a buzz. I couldn't sleep last night because my brain went into what I call systems mode, where everything was connecting up in a kind of mad way. But what I'm going to use is the phrase that I really liked from the Better Food Traders session that I attended yesterday, which was from survive to thrive. Yeah. And I think that's what I want to take away from this wonderful conference, which is the notion we've been working so hard and it's been a long haul. We've got to get to the bit where we're thriving. So another word that really came through from me in many of the sessions was solidarity. The solidarity that runs throughout the Oxford Rural Farming Conference is what feeds us every year and helps us to get through the next one. So within all of that, we did a lot of work as Sustain and all of our friends within the Alliance on farming type issues, land use, things to do with farm support systems. And there's just, we were swimming in acronyms for some of it, from BPSs to SFIs, but being led by our wonderful colleague, Vicky Hurd, who is the head of sustainable farming at Sustain, who's done so much to draw everybody together. She's blushing over there in my armchair because she's just popped around for us to have a glass of wine together, because we need a bit of solidarity of real people connecting. But the farm support schemes that are then supporting all these wonderful things that have been talked about in all of the glorious, gorgeous detail: herbal lays, hedgerows, dung beetles. Vicky's laughing at me because I've become obsessed by dung beetles since the session yesterday. Agroforestry, soil. We keep on talking about biota. Isn't it wonderful to be among people who want to talk about soil biota and meadows and all of these things? So I've got I've got my electronic pad here, pen and pencil. It's all about the web of life. You know, it's really struck me this time around how much we are talking about maintaining the web of life, how much the dung beetles are connected to antibiotics policy, to good animal welfare, to decent food coming off the land, to grasslands, to carbon capture, all of these things connected in. And when farming is done well, then it's about that and making the kind of circular economy that's inherent in nature really work. But of course, within all of that, we then also have to make that work economically for people. So I've been really moved this year as well by how many sessions there've been on joining it up with the market. So how to get the trading schemes to work in a way that is sympathetic with agroecological farming, and how we can get the local food infrastructure. I came just from a session just now with Sustainable Food Trust to talk about abattoirs, to talk about local food infrastructure that can really make this work. And the kinds of words that then start coming up are things like, well, paying on time, decent wages, living wages for people, but also loyalty and this solidarity word again, and diversity and flexibility. Those values-led trading schemes that aren't dumping on farmers, they are trying to support farmers to do this well. So we had speakers from places like Locavore, from the Better Food retailer in Bristol, from Riverford, for the Open Food Network, from Grain Communities, the Better Food Traders Network, talking about trading with values. And I'm going to take away a phrase from this conference, which is about, we need a generation of agroecological retailers. Those are the things that some of us can do to help farmers to thrive, making the economy of the soil work, but also making the economy of the trading mechanisms work. And within that, like you, I was really moved by that picture of Wakelin's farm in the film, that green oasis in the middle of a desert of large-scale arable, which is a sort of like a little green sailing ship, isn't it, that's weathering the storm. That is
Star Wars ship.
That's Star Wars ship. Oh my God, we're going to get into TIE fighters and X-Wings and stuff. I am an Ewok. That's what he did. We're in the Rebel Alliance. Then if that is the rebel ship, then it's seeding beautiful things, pun intended. It's an ecosystem of enterprises. It's about agroecology. It's about composite cross wheat populations, which I like to practice saying every year because it's wonderful. I went to that farm and had a kind of religious experience as Martin Wolf talked to me about composite cross wheat populations 10 years ago. Can we just pay tribute to the fact he's not here with us this year? Because every year I used to like to have a meal with him and I would be refreshed in it. Well, I am refreshed by all of you guys as well. And in all of that diversity, I was deeply moved by several of the justice movement diversity sessions, including ones on food and empire and the inherent problems and inequalities and evils that have come to pass in our food system in the past, and how we can do reparation, how we can be allies, and how we can help to set things to rights. Because that's the job that's ahead of us now, isn't it? Setting things to rights for our communities, for our health, for for the soil, for the dung beetles. I'm going on about dung beetles again, Vicky. Sorry. Yay, there she is. Just the spirit of this. Thank you so much to everybody for the spirit. It's coming through even through the rectangles on the screen. If we were together, we would all be going to the pub now. It's one of my most joyful moments is going to the pub with Colin and Ruth every year, and with the Kindling Trust and with Pete Ritchie and all our lovely friends, old and new. Of course, I have to say that there's some really big things that are coming up this year. It's not easy stuff that we have to face. There are trade deals coming down the line. There's all of the climate stuff that needs to be followed up to get food into the nationally determined contributions, activities that come out of COP26 and move into COP27. We've got to defend pesticide policy in trade deals and in post-EU regulation and in antibiotic policy. We've got to get the local food infrastructure right. We've got to make sure that the replacements for EU structural funds are used in a way that supports small-scale abattoirs, local food infrastructure, appropriate scale trading schemes. There's a lot of work to be done, but oh look, there are a lot of us. Isn't that wonderful? 4,000 people attended this conference. There are 4,000 people who are interested in playing a part in it. I think we all have to understand what the part is that we need to play and ask for the right kind of support. Be clear about what we need to succeed, and then we can truly go from survive to thrive and in solidarity.
Thank you, Kath. I think that's the positivity and the solidarity coming through is fantastic. And as we all know, it is the year of the dung beetle, because we have had 2 sessions in this conference and I've never seen such interest. So that's fantastic. And also, obviously, what you mentioned was those fantastic justice sessions, which we is a new introduction to the Oxford Real Farming Conference. We asked Land in Our Names and Shared Assets to program a new room for the conference, which is to give a justice lens to food and farming. And on that note, I'd like to bring in Josina Calise from Land in Our Names and Christabel Buchanan from Shared Assets to tell us about how things went in your room and the highlights from those sessions. We've heard lots of fantastic things, so do tell us about them.
Yay. Hi, everyone. It's been a delight working with Christabel and Shared Assets and the ORFC team, especially Dora, to program the Justice Room, which I think emerged from suggestion that I made to Fran and then didn't expect to be followed up, and then was really pleased about that. And the suggestion of Dora to go from volunteer at last year's ORFC to helping program all of the things that we needed to do. And it emerged as well because really feeling like there were so many underheard voices in the food and farming movement, the progressive food and farming movement that needed to be amplified. And personally, for me, it's a bit of a swan song. Wanted to say goodbye to everyone in person before I go on parental leave, and making sure that there'd be, amazing people that would be called upon to speak about social justice issues as they pertain to us, the food producers and growers and land justice activists. Christabel, your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Josina. I'd echo that. I've really enjoyed being a part of the Justice Room. Obviously, some really big and important topics going on, and something that I thought was a unique experience was the way that it weaved together lots of different justice themes to show beautiful examples of people finding power to work towards an intersectional justice. So that's a justice that includes health justice, that's coming up more and more, wealth justice, racial justice, that played a really important part in the programming of the Justice Room. And then also justice for the more than human. So that's not just us humans, that's soils, trees, the mycelium, all species that make up our world. So yeah, on the health issue, there was a really good kind of quote about like land being part of kind of dominant systems of health, wealth and power in the Jewish agricultural section, which I think a lot of people really enjoyed who went to that. That's come up for a few people. And so we heard also from the Seed Sisters, who were dressed as a damson and an apple. They embodied those. They take kind of like a theatrical storytelling role to overcome skepticism about like what is valid and not valid knowledge. But they kind of talked about taking care of ourselves using herbs, and this is something that we can all do. And then there was talking about healing with the land. Of course, we need access to land to be able to heal with the land. But yeah, thank you, Sinead from Sussex, who's a farmer there, for your beautiful articulation of how to connect with nature and how that has brought you the possibility of becoming a land worker, against many odds, it would seem. Yeah, also really great discussions on kind of resource justice. So that's a really big part of kind of people from racialized backgrounds having access to land, having access to the things that they need to become land workers, or find those kind of spaces accessible. They want to kind of go to them. And so there was a talk about the Roots into Growing report, which is just the beginning. It's just scratching the surface of what's needed in terms of research into people of colour accessing land. So loads more needs to be done on that. And part of that is building redistributive justice within our existing movement. So that's all of us, basically. So of course there's the bigger world out there, but there's like resources that we have in our networks which we can share. So yeah, so that people can have that kind of administrative or infrastructure or kind of other resource support that they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any more thoughts from you, Josina?
Oh, my brain is soup. We've been talking about, yeah, so many things. One thing that I loved about the Seed Sisters one, I came in like just towards the end because it was at the same time as the Land, Race and Empire one, but the audience was really falling about. Like, they are just so funny, and they make herbalism so accessible by being so warm and hilarious. And yeah, that's one that I can't wait to catch up on, although I got to know them at the Medicine Festival earlier this year, so, well, last year. And then when you're talking about health justice, redistributive justice, race justice, all of that fits into such a huge like framework that we don't even really know what it looks like yet. And so going back to the beginning on Wednesday, when we had our Theory of Change land justice workshop, which had the potential to be really dry, you know, theories of change, they're often very bland, unseasoned, you know, 2D diagrams, but the facilitators made it so interactive and dynamic. And I think lots of people came away from that feeling like, oh, that was actually something really useful to do. And there's going to be a lot more work on that going forward in a sort of very stretched out long-term way.
À long terme.
One of my favorite quotes from that session, I think it was someone called Fiona who talked about Veganuary, and that should be in August, because that's when you actually have a harvest that's worth, you know, eating vegan food for. And yeah, that's kicked off a sort of Twitter chat for me about yeah, the usefulness of Regenuary and Veganuary, and linking to articles on that and various thinkers and speakers. It was such an honor for us as Lion to be in dialogue with Corinne Fowler, who's really, really, you know, been a pioneer of talking about land and empire and rural spaces and, you know, concepts of the countryside. And yeah, that was maybe the most emotional moment for me, is you know, inviting the audience that would have been, you know, in person to applaud her efforts and, you know, support in the face of so much hostility, to just wanting accurate representation of British history, really, in terms of colonial legacy, and that people responded so warmly to her, and thinking about how that sparked other efforts to talk about the colonial legacies as in terms of National Trust properties or Kew Gardens. And yeah, like just so many different people that spoke about their own experiences of coming to the land and how sort of broad and diverse they were.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, sorry.
Carry on, Christopher.
Lovely comments coming through as well from everybody that I hope everybody. So yes, thank you.
I think we've had so much feedback about the Justice Room and all the incredible hard work that you put into it. So we really are grateful for that. Thank you very much. Have you got, okay, I'm back on again. Thank you so much, Justina and Christabel, and thank you for making that happen, and also to Dora, who came on board to work with them today, so work with them this year, so that's fantastic. So I'd also like to just now bring in 3 new partners that we've had the joy of working with this year. They are Schumacher College with Pavel Sankey. Pavel, I apologise if I just pronounced your name incorrectly. Pete Ritchie from Nourish Scotland, and Tom Wakeford from the ETC group. And in some ways, you're covering many similar things, but in some ways, different things. I know that we've had lots of fantastic sessions on climate that both Pete and Tom have been involved in. And Schumacher College have organised a number of global sessions with Indigenous communities around the world, as well as a fantastic session that I attended today with Satish Kumar about the spirituality of growing food, which was incredibly passionate, had about 200 people in it, and we all came away so fired up. So I'll just hand over to you to tell us about your highlights and what you're taking away from the ORFC this year.
Great. So, all right, so I go first.
Yeah, off you go.
Yeah, that's fine. So great, thanks, Fran, and thanks everybody. It's so great to be here at the end of this, and it's really been such a pleasure and honor on the behalf of Schumacher and Dartington Trust, really, to both partner with the ORFC this year and see some incredible and really inspiring sessions this week. And I know that from our end, we had to cancel, unfortunately, one of our sessions this morning, because of COVID related illness. And hopefully that was the Dartington Estate as an agroforestry lighthouse, which hopefully we'll be able to share in some other way. And we're certainly working to reschedule the pre-conference workshop on the future of farming education that we had scheduled for later in the year. We just felt that was so important to get together in person. So we'll wait for a time when we can actually do that. But it strikes me that, I could say a lot of the similar things that folks have already said on this call, but just the themes across the sessions, obviously uniquely focused in place and in specific practice in different areas. And they absolutely weave together for me really through very similar themes, and most of which really stem from what I think Nikki said really at the beginning here, which is about community. And I'm always interested in how we, as director of learning, really, how we share what we learn. And this conference has been a great way to do that. And community for us is really one of the foundational themes of how we engage with our students, with our staff, our volunteers, our partners in Dartington and around the world, as a sort of center for learning at the intersection of arts, ecology, and social justice. So drawing directly from ecological systems, on our state and directly from our community partners, which I think has been exemplified in a lot of the sessions, over the last couple of days. And it strikes me that sort of the relationship between diversity and unity really stuck with me, and particularly as it was summed up by Satish, the session that you described there, Fran. I think, what did he say? He said, unity dances with diversity. And I absolutely loved that phrase. And I'm going to keep that with me for quite some time. And for me, that's sort of diversification within farms, among partners, within and across food systems and bioregions, as well as themes of equity in food systems and farming networks, whether global, local, bioregional, what have you. It's really, for me, and hopefully for my colleagues and students, I think it is as well, really a clarion call for sort of open and equitable sharing of knowledge, practice, and experience across various forms in various ways, whether it's online here or on the ground in various sites around the world, locally, regionally, globally. And, I was really drawn to sort of thinking about our own students' work on site, to support the growing of produce and growing of community that Satish and Colin, a colleague of mine, also described, to research and partnerships like the ones that have been talked about here already, in Central America and elsewhere that my colleague Nathan Einbinder has talked about at the conference here, and other global partnerships and development of networks to share experience. So, it's interesting, the conference came at a time we've just invited new students onto our campus. We're actually starting our first MSc in regenerative food and farming and enterprise on Monday. So there's been lots of work to do, and hopefully some of the students were able to participate in the conference. And if not, then they'll certainly hear about it next week from us. And then starting an undergraduate program in the autumn. I mean, I'm just can't really articulate clearly, obviously, how excited I am to draw on everything that's happened at this conference, into those programs, and help to develop the community and share with our partners. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Tom, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's fantastic to be here, and I just wanted to say something personal, really, about it must be about 35 years I started tearing articles by Colin Tudge out of New Scientist, and probably around the same time coming across Schumacher's Small is Beautiful. And I think in that time, sort of growing in the movement, and sort of arriving here in the last 3 days, what's really moving is how, having grown up in a culture of white supremacy and patriarchy, that really feels something that you're helping. This conference is helping shift things, and I guess what I found really valuable is how challenging some of the sessions are here for all different sorts of people. I certainly found a challenge yesterday in a session entitled Climate Justice is a Distraction from Racial Justice. But it was a really brilliant session, and really want to give a big call out to Dee Woods, who I know has taught me a lot over the years and has nurtured all sorts of skills in the movement and capacities. Because I think the other thing the conference has been great at doing is making meaning, because you can have all the facts you want, but I think what ORFC is doing increasingly, and it was great to see the Northern conferences getting going, so that the sort of different interpretations in the Northern hill farms and Scottish mountains with their own realities, own communities there, they are also coming on board, because there's all these distractions, as Colin put it, the distractions of technophilia in the mass media, in our so-called learning institutions, and something that I hope you'll go and look at if you haven't already on the Land Workers Alliance website is their response to a report by the Soil Association on agro-ecotech, because that is full of distractions like blockchain, distractions like robots, distractions like a rebranding of genetic engineering as gene editing. And they are there to distract us from the central task, which is people-centered, socially just, decolonizing agroecology. Finally, I think we know we're winning on the agroecology, and I think we know smallholders, peasant farmers, indigenous ways, indigenous knowledges are the future, but large corporations are now trying to swing in and say, oh, actually agroecology, fine, we can incorporate that, but we can't incorporate food sovereignty, we can't incorporate smallholder autonomy, the very principles that underlie La Via Campesina and the Oxford Real Farming Conference. So the session today that Ruth highlighted at the beginning of the day around who counts, who decides what counts as the best size of farm to feed the planet. And the truth is, and there's research that will be presented to the FAO next week, and you can read all about it on ETC and GRAIN and other organizations, is that large corporations can't feed the world. Whatever the Oxford University Business School, sponsored by the Gates Foundation, says, they can't. So I think what's great about this year in summary is it's not just who's in the room this year, but also what's being argued for, what solidarities are being built. And I think an acknowledgement that capitalism actually can't solve things. It's an inherently racist system, and we need to look to something else. So I'll hand over to you, Pete.
Oh, thanks, Tom. And listen, thanks again to Brittany and Francesca and all the organisers. I mean, I always miss most of the conference because I can't be in the long room and the council chamber at the same time. And this year I've missed nearly all of it. You know, so thanks. But at least because we're online, we can watch it again. And I'm looking forward to so many sessions that I've missed. I work in Scotland, but I live in Hope. And this is a place I always come to get hope and take hope and inspiration away from. And I think if conferences had an R number, you know, the number of people that you tell about stuff that you heard at the conference, then this conference would be at the top end of the R numbers. You know, I will go and tell lots of people about things I've heard that I hadn't thought about before, or hadn't thought about in the same way or hadn't seen. So many things. I want to give a big shout out to someone in the session on dairy policy, Abby Reader from the NFU in Wales, who was just so brave today, talking about the bullying, the nonsense that goes on with supply contracts, the dairy industry, the whole way in which farmers are victimized and picked on and actually sort of forced to do things they don't want to do, things that really, you know, grind the soul. And but also for saying maybe in 30 years' time, cow with calf will be the norm, and that openness to change is really good. Tim Lang said at one point in the conference, we have to be looking at different alliances. And it's just great to see people from the NFU talking at this conference and feeling on the same side, part of the same movement, as somebody was saying earlier. So I think what I've seen over the years here at this conference is this sort of deepening and broadening. And as you said, Tom, there's been a huge broadening from when we first met, and there was a few of us in a sort of pub in Oxford. And I mean, we were a bit crusty, I think, to be fair. You know, maybe we call it the patriarchy, whatever it was, but we were a bit crusty. And we're not so crusty anymore. You know, it's a much more diverse group of people here, both internationally, both in gender terms, in age terms. The whole thing feels much more inclusive and much more diverse and really encouraging. But as well as getting broader, we've got deeper. You know, we've gone more into science, we've got more into politics, we've got even more into tech, we've gone deeper into issues too. So I think the whole way this conference has evolved without losing that sense of coherence. It still feels like we're part of this bigger tribe and we're on a mission, we're doing something together. So I think that's a real tribute to the way the conference organizers have shaped the program so that it's broader and deeper, but still coherent. When I first met Colin, he was banging on, as he does, about the Renaissance, how we're going to have a Renaissance, right? And I feel, Colin, you've had your Renaissance now. You know, we've heard so much about this excitement that's going on in food and farming in the UK and globally. I think you've had your Renaissance. And I know you've been called the commanders of Rebel Army, Ruth and Colin, but, you know, my kids, when they were growing up, what we watched was the Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm afraid to say. You know, Leonardo, Michelangelo, you know, that's who we watch. And I will go on thinking of you now as the Mutant Ninja Turtles of the food movement. I'm sorry about that. If you want to be the Luke Skywalker, you know, Princess Leia, you can, but for me, you're always going to be the Mutant Ninja Turtles, all right? But anyway, just briefly to a more serious topic, financialization. I went to a great session with Honor Eldridge and Guy Singwatts and other people talking about the financialization of carbon and biodiversity. And it feels to me this is the Death Star. This is this big thing that's happening feels like an unstoppable force. And it was interesting, Victoria Prentice said almost casually in the session today, oh yeah, carbon, we're going to get the private sector to do that. We're not going to spend public money on that. We're going to sell that. You know, as far as the minister was concerned, we've already sold our carbon. So that for me was a sort of real indication of how the consensus has shifted towards the financialization of soil carbon and all the little beasties that live in it. You know, it's been atomized and abstracted and made into a financial product. But the other thing which came out of that was that it's really clear that the people who've lost their soil carbon through the way they farmed, the people who've grubbed up their hedges, the people whose farms are least supportive of climate change and biodiversity are likely to gain the most out of the change as the change comes. And as they shift to agroecology, I suppose what we have to think is, what are we going to say to those people? And what we have to say is welcome. Thank you for making that change. And we have to actually not say we were here first, not say you benefited more than us from this. We have to say welcome on board. Thanks.
Thank you very much, all of you. There's some fantastic stuff that you said there about the different sessions that you attended and the different themes that you're seeing emerge and the way that the conference has evolved over the last 13 years. Pete, you just mentioned then how wonderful it is to see more and more young people coming. So on that note, I'd like to bring in Chloe Saltmarsh, who is the founder of Flame, which is the youth movement of the Land Workers Alliance, and also Morgan Oddy, who is a farmer joining us from France, who's also the new General Secretariat of La Via Campesina. I hand over to you to tell us about your highlights from the conference and what you see emerging in this movement this year.
Hello, everyone. Wow, it's so amazing to be here and speak in front of everyone. It's a massive opportunity for me, so thank you. And thank you to everyone who organized this conference. It's been so amazing. I've learned so much stuff that I never really thought I would learn. I think the thing about the Oxford Real Farming Conference for me is that it's not just a farming conference. It just is like so much more. And it's been really exciting for me to see how much ties in to the name under farming conference. It's been so diverse. I've heard so many different things, and I just want to thank everyone for like bringing together this absolutely wonderful, joyous thing. I want to focus on joy. I've seen it popping up in the chat already. I think everybody else is feeling that same thing. It's just so joyful to see everyone here, and I've seen some absolutely fantastic talks based on that. So I've learned a load of new facts and information as well, but the sense of community has just been really, really strong for me. And yeah, the joy just comes from that so much. I saw a fantastic talk on regenerative women on the land from Land Workers Alliance, and that was just beautiful. Everyone had brought their shrines together, and just hearing the experiences of women on the land is just really great for me. There was music and love, and everyone was dancing at the end, and I just thought, that's more than a farming conference. That is something more than that. And I also saw some fantastic talks on intergenerational knowledge. And again, I've seen this in the chat. I think everyone kind of believes that this is the way forward. I went to a session on the new entrants, and it was really nice to kind of bring together that community. And one thing that we spoke about a lot was the fact that we need to kind of support one another and also take that intergenerational knowledge forwards, and build that sort of community between people who know more about certain things. It's priceless, that kind of thing. And I really want to say thank you to Land Workers Alliance for providing an amazing platform for Youth Flame and for lots of young people out there. They brought together this new entrants community, and it's just such a huge opportunity to kind of have a platform as young people. And I myself, I'm not in farming, but they've still given this platform to us and so much support. Sorry. Yeah, so we talked a lot in the new entrants thing about collective struggles, but at the end of it, there was so much joy for going forward, achieving your goals and that kind of thing, which was just amazing. And on the theme of intergenerational knowledge, one talk I absolutely loved was the talk of well-being in relation to Indigenous food. And in this talk, I'm sure lots of you saw it. It was really inspiring. And to see Gerald Miles talk about his story and the film that they showed, which I definitely recommend watching later on if you didn't see it, was just beautiful. It was a beautiful story of a singer brought them together, a younger singer brought them together, two older people, to talk about the black oats and the seed saving to do with that, and then that will be saved to pass on to younger generations. And I think that was just so beautiful to see. And I've known Gerald for a really long time. I remember him from being really, really young, and he took me along. Well, he didn't take me along, but I went along with him to several of the GM protests that he spoke about. And as a young child, I didn't really know much about it, but I felt very passionate, I'm sure. And I was there dressed as a ladybird and supporting the protests. But it's really nice for me to have grown up now and see Gerald speak and understand exactly what he's saying and feeling that connection. It's just fantastic. So thank you to Gerald for that as well. And I wanted to tell a little story about my recent experience when I went to COP26. And I thought this kind of summed up everything the joy that I felt about this. I recently went with Flame and with Landworks Alliance to kind of participate in all of the action there. And I met a man, Javier Sanchez from La Via Campesina. I'm sure that quite a few of you know him. And I spoke to him and he spoke to me just in Spanish, and we had to we quickly bring over a translator. I was like, quick, I need to hear what he's saying. And he was saying about how happy he was to see young people supporting the cause so much and as passionately as he felt that. And he held my hands and he said, it's just so important to pass on the knowledge that we as your elders have. And in this activism world, it's so important for us to share what we've learned over many, many years with the youth. And it honestly, it's had such a big impact on me. It was just beautiful the way he was really just saying that to me. He's saying, you are the future, you've got the energy, we've got the knowledge, together we can do it. And I'm sorry, just stuttering my words, but yeah, we as the youth, we have the energy, we're ready to go. And it's just really exciting to be able to have opportunities like the Oxford Real Farming Conference to learn all of the knowledge, get that pass on of knowledge. And there were so many other sessions that I couldn't make it to, so I'm going to try my hardest to watch them, share them with as many people as I can on social networks and that kind of thing, and with Flame and everything. And I'm also so proud of all of the young people who spoke at the Oxford Real Farming Conference. I saw so many great sessions from Flame members and other young people, and I am so proud of all of the young people who are there ready to stand on this really big platform and speak, even though it's something that's quite new to all of us. So thank you to all of you. That took a lot of courage and so much passion, and it's just lovely. So yeah, that's what I had to say about the conference. Fantastic and joyous. Thank you.
Waouh, quelle énergie. Je vais parler en français.
Such an energy.
There is translation, so you have buttons. Okay.
Such an energy. Thank you to you all. It's quite impressive to see so many young people, so many women, so many people from diverse backgrounds, because diversity is really crucial to the peasant struggles. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for organizing these great days. The ORRFC conference is great. I was lucky enough to attend the 2018 in-person event, and it was extraordinary, really. And I see that we've moved forward, many steps forward since 2018. And the one I would like to highlight is the importance we are giving now to social justice, really, in the conference. All the issues linked with access for everybody to quality food. Also, the questions of neo-colonialism, the relationship between the South and the North, all the issues linked with the income of peasants and farm workers, but also the access to land, not only to the elites and the white people, no, access to lands for everybody, from women, from people from the diversity, sexual diversity, ethnical diversity, poor people, marginalized people. All these questions are at the core of our work. And really, I think that it is crucial to us because it is obvious that the crisis we are entering right now is, first of all, an inequality crisis. There are three things I would like to mention. We are killing the ecosystem right now. Secondly, capitalism is responsible for this. Third, capitalism cannot be a part of the solution. All the market solutions cannot be part of the future. Carbon trade is not a solution either. The technological solutions that are offered by big companies are not part of the solution either. GMOs cannot be part of the solution. What can be part of the solution, what is the basis of the solution we want to move forward, is agroecology and food sovereignty. So, our struggles as peasants, as farmers, are crucial to the entire world. And what was so great to listening to this conference was the fact that we are not alone as peasants, as farmers. We need allies in these struggles, and in this conference I've seen many allies. We need to involve migrants in our struggles, because they are often victims of industrial farming, but they are also part of the solution we want. We have to include urban people, poor people, that are fighting for quality food. This is totally necessary to be healthy. So this conference, your conference, is an opportunity to create, to build alliances in all society. The COVID crisis is very difficult. We've had to adapt quite quickly to it in order to organize this conference. It was supposed to be in person. You've organized it online. And we should acknowledge that this context is a very complex one. With these epidemics, the big companies, capitalism, is taking advantage of the situation to increase its power. And small farmers, peasants cannot meet, which makes things more complicated for them to fight, to struggle against it. So these events, such as this one, are keys, really, for the people fighting for food sovereignty and social justice. So we need this kind of events also in Europe. Why? Well, because we are at the center of capitalism. And we have thus a responsibility. This responsibility is about solidarity towards the people from other countries, but also solidarity with changing the way the system works here in Europe. Because the industrial system, the financial system in our countries is responsible for most of the ecological and social catastrophe in the world. So we have to bring a revolution to our countries. We have to change things in our own countries. And I'm pretty sure that if we base this change on agroecology and on the peasant networks, I think that we can do it only with young people. So I would like to thank Chloe and all the people from Youth Flame and Land Workers Alliance, because in all the countries in Europe, in the North country, we need really to have new farmers, young people, millions of them. So we need your energy, really. We need your energy to make this change possible for the society. As of today, 1 to 2% of the world population is peasant. If we want to have a success, we need way more farmers, way more peasants. So we need your young people. And with these young people that want to get involved against the climate crisis, well, the best thing we can do is to become a peasant and to start working with soil, with the land. So I would like to thank you for the energy you've been giving us. And I really hope that next year we will be able to attend this conference in person, to be able to hug and dance and have a drink together. Thank you very much.
Merci, Morgan, and thank you, Chloe, for your incredible passion. And I can only just second what Morgan said there about coming together next year. We all hope that we'll actually be in person in Oxford. So thank you very much. Just as one last speaker, I'd like to bring on Josiah Meldrum, who is the founder of Hobnodods, who work with British farmers to provide British pulses and grains. And Josiah, you've been in a number of sessions today. You've spoken, I think, pretty much right across the entire 2 days. So I'd love you to share with us what your highlights were and any emerging themes that you've seen over the last couple of days.
Thanks, Fran, and thanks to all the organisers. What an amazing few days, as ever. I'm not going to keep anyone for too long because so much has been said already brilliantly, which I don't need to repeat. And we all need to go for a drink, and it's such a shame that we can't go for a drink together. I would love to be doing that. And before I start, just an appeal to the organisers. Before we finish, can we all switch off our mics and say something, make a noise, celebrate our existence together as a community of people? That'll be amazing.
Consuelo siempre.
Yay! Fantastic.
I'm so glad that I've been able to just create a bit of chaos at the end.
Love you.
Josiah, you stole my thunder there. I was going to do that.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Let's get everyone just back.
So sorry, friend, you're on mute now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Josiah, we'll let you speak for the last couple of minutes and we'll give everyone the opportunity to do that as our sort of final hurrah.
Sorry, I've brought some chaos to proceedings. I'm going to just say a few things. I'm just going to say some words that kind of capture some of the sessions I was in and some of the sessions that I've heard. And I've got a lot of listening to do over the next few weeks. But community, soil biology, connections, justice, solidarity, supply systems, agroforestry, sharing risks, sharing knowledge, sharing so much more, sharing food, sharing land. Diversity came up everywhere, and and as has been said, the conference has deepened and broadened, but there is a lot more work to do, and I don't think we should shy away from that. But fundamentally, love, care, joy, beauty, your beautiful people, beautiful ideas, inspiring stuff, and hope, but not hope in that kind of passive way. I hope things change. Hope that's driven by action, not wishful thinking. Hope that comes from seeing things happening in practice and talking about them and sharing those ideas. But the thing I particularly want to talk about, because it was the sessions that I was really involved in mostly, is, well, I'm going to out myself. I'm going to admit something that I never normally say. I'm going to say something that that a lot of the farmers might immediately kind of react against. But I'm going to come out and say I'm a middleman. I'm going to say it with pride. I'm a facilitator. I'm an enabler. And what we really need to see a lot more of is regenerative agroecological retail, and that for me was a real theme through the conference. This recognition that as our numbers grow in farming and food production, we need to reach customers, we need to explain what it is that we're doing differently, and we need to create these supportive networks that allow that regenerative agroecological farming practice expand, because that's what we need for nature recovery. And we're in a nature emergency, we're in a climate emergency. We've got to change quickly. We need to build demand, and we need to ensure that the supply base that serves that demand is secure and is pushing forwards in change in the right direction. And I think one of the sessions, I think Kath's already said it, she's stolen my thunder slightly, but Reuben Chesters and Julie Brown were saying, you know, we need a generation of agroecological retailers, genuinely green grocers, because that is what's going to allow farmland broadly across our country, but also across the rest of Western Europe and the rest of the world to transform, and for us to see an agroecological food system that reflects all those words and more that I was saying at the beginning. So it's been amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this. And I can't wait for next year, whether it's in person, which I hope it is, or online. And that's me.
Thank you very much, Sion. It's just so fantastic to hear everybody's voices right around the world. So thank you for doing all that. I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers in this session. It was really fantastic and heartwarming and joyful, as Chloe said, to hear about your highlights from the conference and to see what you've been learning about and what's been really inspiring you over the last 2.5 days. So thank you for sharing those with us. I'm just going to mention a couple of bits of housekeeping about the conference before we leave. First of all, we're very aware that many of you actually joined the in-person conference in Oxford and then had to revert your tickets to being online tickets. I just want to say that the difference between the in-person tickets and the online tickets will be processed by the end of January. So thank you very much for your patience on this. The recordings, we're really hoping to have all the recordings up by the end of January. It might take a bit longer. We will let you know as soon as they're available for you to watch. And next week we'll be sending out a delegate survey. So we'd like to encourage you to fill that in and send it back to us. I know it's a bit of a hassle, but those sort of, we do actually go through with a fine-tooth comb every comment that anyone makes and really think about it. So we would really appreciate any help that you can give us in growing and improving as a conference for the next 13 years. Finally, the Hoover platform will be open till the end of March. So please continue to share on this community platform, and you can arrange meetups and you can still keep connecting with other attendees. So that's one of the advantages of being on this online platform. So I'm going to suggest that everyone now puts their screens on gallery view. You may have done this already. If you can just do that now. I'd just like to all right with everyone. I think we've got a bit of, but maybe don't unmute yourself quite yet, but if you can just go on gallery view. And I'd just like to say a few thank yous. And first of all, I'd just like to thank all our speakers across the last 2.5 days. If you can do a big wave and a big, yeah, to identify yourselves. Thank you so much for the efforts that you've put in to being a part of the conference. So thank you very much. And to all our interpreters, I don't know if they're in vision as well. Often they're not, but we really couldn't have had many of those global sessions without all your hard work. And it's just so exciting to be able to share with people's experiences in their own languages. So thank you very much for doing that. Finally, I would I'd also like to thank our incredible team. We've all had to work quite hard over the last 3.5 weeks to move the conference online. So I wonder if our team, if they're there, can also give a big wave. The team includes all the staff of the ORFC and all our incredible volunteers who have had to put in a lot of time of training, first of all to be a volunteer at an in-person conference and then to be an online volunteer. So thank you very much for making this all possible, because we couldn't do it without volunteers. So thank you. And then finally, I'd just like to thank all of you, all the delegates who came along, who were happy to move from being in person to being online, for all the people who joined online, either, when we thought we were going to be in person and you were prepared to commit to being online, which is great. And for everyone all around the world who's also joined us over the last, week or so. And we are really excited to be forming this global community. And I was being asked about this earlier today in a interview about, have we seen a real change in the agroecological movement over the last year? And I think the answer is a resounding yes. So I just think that's so exciting. The COVID may have meant that we've had to go online, but that has given us this opportunity to connect with communities and with organizers and everyone all around the world, and to form these connections that are now going to help us to grow the movement and to take that action that we so desperately need to. So, you know, this has been the silver lining, really. So it's fantastic. Thank you all for coming. So at that stage, I'm just going to hand over to Ruth and Colin to have the final word, and then I might all ask you to make some noise. Ruth and Colin.
I don't think there's much more actually to say because everybody said it all. But just one thing though that we often felt, and it was said to us, you know, you're just touching the surface with these sessions, and is there some way of taking it in greater depth? And so we are now starting up, where it's Colin's idea, the College for Real Farming and Food Culture, which will attempt to do just that. Obviously with selected topics, but we're looking at different ways of doing it through dialogues as well as meetings and seminars and other things. And we're delighted that we're working with Schumacher on one of the dialogues on financialization, which, you know, just is so needed, isn't it? We just have a robust response to that. And also though on education. But if you have particular ideas, the things that you think that a college, which is not seen as a formal college, it's a collection of people getting together, could actually take forward usefully from the conference, and maybe then come back next year having moved forward on, then please do get in touch and let us know. Otherwise, and the other thing to say, the thing about this conference, of course, it isn't, as somebody said, it's a non-conference because it's not put together by a body of advisors or people who're supposed to know. It's put together by you who do know, because you're the farmers, you're the people out there on the ground. And that, to me, is what keeps it alive and changing and growing. It's actually because you're the ones who are making it. So thank you all so, so much. I'll stop there.
Ruth's about to get emotional, I think, after the end of a couple of days, but I think we all feel like that, Ruth. So I just I'm going to try something, and maybe completely wrong, but Nimo Bassi spoke earlier yesterday, and one of the things he said was obviously I think it's also the rallying cry of La Via Campesina, which is farmers united will never be defeated. So if you want to give it a go, we could all put our sound on and try that. If that completely fails, just make some noise.
United.
Farmers united.
Farmers united. Be divided.
We'll never be divided.
Okay, just make some noise.
Thank you.